You know, there's a great debate, as you know, about education in China at the moment, and we want to make sure that the parents who send their child to our schools do not want or do not expect the kind of didactic education their child receives in a Chinese state school. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's very different from the kind of education that we offer here. We want to know if they will be comfortable or not with the fact their children will not just have a textbook in every subject, because we don't use textbooks in the way that some school systems do. These are the kinds of things that we ask questions about. A parent, for instance, might think that our school is exactly the same as a Chinese school, except we teach the kids through English and then the kids go to Harvard. Well, things are much more complicated than that. The differences in the kind of education are considerable, and we have to know the parents and the family will be comfortable and supportive of their child in that environment. One of the most common reactions after the child who's been admitted to the school has been here for some time from the parents is that they'll say, "My child is so happy at school." And now that is a success. We want the children to be happy, because happy children learn better. We want to know if a parent expects the child to have many hours of homework every day with lots of worksheets, doing lots of mathematics and lots of English and lots of Chinese, repetitive exercises, and expected to put things to memory. That's not the way we teach in our school. We have to know whether the parents expect that or not.
那国际学校是一个国际化的产物，对于国际学校的孩子们，您认为他们对自己本民族文化的这个认可和学习重不重要？那就是在咱们悦城国际里面，怎么样让孩子接受到自己本民族的传统文化？
First of all, yes, it's very important. All children should have roots, and those roots should be embedded in the culture of the home country. It gives them a confidence and a certainty in their lives when they know they have a home, and they know the nature and culture of their home country. These are some of the things we do as a school. I'll just mention 2 or 3 things. First is we talk about the countries we come from, and we respect and we celebrate the fact that our children come from different countries. And so we'll ask our children to tell us about their countries, to give a presentation about their countries. When we are making studies, we often allow children to use some different examples, different content. So they may choose to write about their country if they're writing an English piece or a geography piece or something. So we allow them to make choices to explore their own history and culture. Another thing we do is we have a teacher, a coordinator in the school, who encourages parents to set up what are called mother tongue language classes for students outside regular school hours, and then we provide the facilities and the computers and things that are needed for that. Another thing we do is we try to have books in the library in different languages from different countries, and again we ask parents to help us by contributing to this when they go home, to bring some books for our library from their different countries. This adds to the linguistic and cultural wealth of our school. Mm-hmm. And when I mentioned earlier that parents and the school are partners in the child's education, parents are particularly important in this respect. So we encourage our parents, for example, to speak with their children in their mother tongue at home, and to make sure they bring into China books and magazines and toys which are based in their home country, so that the child is exposed to the language and culture of their whole home country in their home here in China. Not only foreign parents, but Chinese parents too. We encourage Chinese parents, for instance, to ensure their children are reading Chinese books at home, and to speak with their children at Chinese in the home, not to attempt to speak in broken English. It's much better for the child to become very proficient in their mother tongue.
那有很多中国家长可能现在也非常关注教育哈，在进行教育的反思，那可能很关注比如说欧式教育啊、美式教育。那对于欧洲以及这个美式教育您怎么看？他们的教育方式是不是优于中国的这个传统教育方式？
In a sense, there's no such thing as Western education, because you'll find different education systems in different countries in the West. So, for instance, you will find the Danish education system is very different from the British. The British is very different from the French. The French is very different from the American. So there is not just one kind of education system in the West. That would be my first point. Some education systems in the West, and indeed in other parts of the country, bear similarities with the Chinese education system, and others are somewhat different. On the whole, I'm not aware of any national system of education which is perfect, and I think it would be wrong for China to emulate any one system from overseas, whether it's American or British or any other. There is a lot to learn in every country in the world about education. But what we do have in the world is an enormous and growing body of educational research. Actually, we know very well now what works in education. Now, though what works may not be in place in any, all those things may not be in place in any one country in the world. The opportunity for China at this very exciting time in Chinese education is to take what China already has, and in my opinion, to take the best from what we know through research and blend that with the existing Chinese education. That's a much better approach, in my view, than copying or importing a ready-made education system. For instance, America is fairly well known, I think, for offering educational opportunity for all. That's fundamental to American education, and that is something I think that is worth emulating. Whereas other countries are much stronger, for instance, in methodologies for personalizing education to ensure that each individual child has access to the curriculum. So let's take the best from research and from different countries and use them in China.
那您曾经说过，我们教的是学生，不是学科。那对这句话应该怎么样理解？
Well, actually, we teach both, but we put the student first. And what that phrase means is that we personalize learning. Now, that means that what we do in our school is, instead of teaching all children in exactly the same way and assessing student progress in exactly the same way, we teach in such a way that it allows the individual student to learn to the best of their ability in the way that they learn best. So the end goal for the student is the same, but they may approach their learning through a different path, a path that suits them best. So by putting the students first, we are looking at the student as a person and as a learner and adapting how we teach to make sure that they can benefit from it. So to put it a slightly different way, we have to know our children very well. This is why we focus on the student. For instance, we may know that this student has very little English so far. This student's previous schooling was not so strong, so they are not so ready for new learning. This student learns well by listening and by writing. This student learns more by moving around. We all know children who have to move around a lot. Another student may be very visual. They prefer to see things for themselves, and they learn through their eyes rather than through their ears. Now, if we know how our children learn, we can adapt our teaching. So we can teach towards the same learning outcome, the same learning goal, but allow the children to use their own learning so far and their own methods of learning to achieve that goal. So, for instance, if I'm going to teach a class of students about the history of city growth in China, now we can approach that in lots of different ways, so that this student can learn using electronic resources and plans and things like this. Another one may want to go to history books. Another one may want to use oral history in speaking from citizens who live in the cities and so forth. There may be different ways. Whereas what we know for sure, if I stand at the front of the class and lecture to 40 students, 50 students, or 10 students, the number doesn't matter, in exactly the same way for every child, I can promise you some of those children will learn and some of those children will not learn. That is guaranteed. By focusing on the student, we try to guarantee that every student will learn. So we call it differentiation. It doesn't mean that I teach a different curriculum to every individual student. It means I teach in such a way that each individual student is able to access the curriculum in their own way. That's the difference. But but it requires a great deal of professional expertise on the part of the teacher, and that's why we have a program of professional development for all of us, so that we can maximize our expertise in this area.
那好，我的问题就这些。今天咱们聊了1个多小时，我也非常受益。那感谢尼克校长。
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure for me too. Thank you.